The galaxy had always watched Earth, quietly, silently, as if observing a small, fragile gem in a vast ocean of stars. Alien races whispered to each other about the humans, their fragile bodies, their fragile minds, their fragile societies. "They cannot survive outside their little planet," said the Council of Zalaris, their translucent bodies glowing softly in the dim light of their chamber. "They fight among themselves over crumbs of land. They pollute their own skies, and they fear the vastness of space. Let them try to reach the stars. They will break." The aliens were confident. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. They had observed species stronger, faster, smarter than humans. And yet something about humans had puzzled them, though they dismissed it as a quirk. Humans were fragile, but they were stubborn. They were tiny, but they dreamed in ways that sometimes startled even the most ancient observers. On Earth, humans did not hear these whispers. They did not know that the galaxy had laughed at them, that they were considered weak, inconsequential. A species with a short time to live, humans were too busy living. They were building, learning, struggling, falling, and rising again. And somewhere deep in their hearts, a desire burned, a desire to reach the stars, to see what lay beyond the sky, to leave their mark on the universe. Commander. Ilara stood on the observation deck of the first interstellar launch station, staring at the endless black sky. Thousands of people worked around her, preparing the first fleet for its journey into the unknown. Ships of every shape and size gleamed. Under artificial lights, engines humming softly, carrying within them humanity's greatest hopes. Engineers ran from one console to another, checking systems, tightening screws, recalibrating instruments. Pilots went through their final simulations, their hands steady even as their hearts raced. Ilara's hands rested on the railing, gripping it as if it could anchor her against the tides of fear and anticipation rising inside her. She thought of the people she had known who would never make this journey. Friends who had trained for years, but were lost to accidents, illness, or simple chance. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. She felt the fear of failure, the dread of being the first to lead humanity into the void. And yet, despite everything, hope filled her. Hope for a future that was bigger than the conflicts of Earth. Hope that humanity, fragile though it may seem, could show the galaxy what it truly meant to survive. A young technician approached, her face flushed with excitement and nerves. "Commander, the fleet is ready. All systems green. Engines stable. We launch in 1 hour." Ilara nodded, swallowing hard. She turned to look at the first ship, gleaming under the station lights. It was small compared to the colossal fleets. She had read about in alien records, but it carried humanity's courage in every bolt, every panel, every engine. "We may be fragile," she whispered to herself, "but we are alive, and alive. We fight, alive. We reach." The station's intercom crackled. "Attention, crew of the First Fleet. Prepare for final boarding. Launch sequence will begin shortly." A ripple of energy ran through the station. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers alike held their breath. Each person carried a piece of humanity's soul on their shoulders, a spark of determination that refused to be extinguished. Families waved from viewing decks. Children pressed their small hands against the glass, hoping to see the heroes who would carry their dreams into the cosmos. Ilara walked along the fleet, inspecting the ships, greeting crew members, offering words of encouragement. "You are not just humans," she said quietly to a young pilot. "You are the voice of our planet. You carry the stories of billions with you. You carry our will to survive." The aliens, far away in their cold, glowing chambers, laughed again. "Fragile," they said. "They believe themselves strong, but they are brittle. They will break under the weight of the stars." Ilara would never know the aliens' words, but it did not matter. Humanity did not fight for approval. Humanity fought for survival, for hope, for the fire that burned in every heart. As the countdown began, the fleet engines roared to life, filling the station with a deep, vibrating hum. The first ships lifted from their pads, rising slowly at first, then faster, cutting through Earth's atmosphere with grace and power. Flames of propulsion painted the skies, brilliant against the fading blue of day. On Earth below, millions watched live broadcasts, their faces lit by the glow of screens. They cheered, they cried, they held each other, feeling a pride they had never known. The fragile humans had dared to touch the impossible, to reach beyond the limits imposed by nature and fear. Commander Alara, standing in the observation deck, as the last ship vanished into the night sky, whispered to the wind, to the universe, to whatever would listen, "We may be fragile, but we are not weak. We may be small, but our hearts are infinite. And someday, the stars will hear our roar." The first fleet sailed into the darkness, leaving Earth behind, carrying humanity's hope into the unknown. And in that moment, the galaxy began to notice, not the weaknesses of humans, but their courage, their stubbornness, and the quiet, burning fire that refused to die. The stars stretched endlessly before the human fleet, cold and distant, like pinpricks of silver on black velvet. Space was quiet, but not empty. Every ship, every crew member, felt the weight of the unknown pressing against them. They were leaving behind everything familiar: Earth's blue oceans, green forests, cities bustling with life, and the warmth of home. Ahead lay a void filled with dangers no human had ever faced. The journey was not easy. Cosmic storms swept through the outer regions, sending violent waves of radiation that shook even the strongest ships. Meteor showers rained down like shards of glass, and some fleets lost smaller vessels to their fury. Crew members worked around the clock, patching hull breaches, rerouting power, and holding their courage together like a fragile thread. Fear whispered in the minds of many, but hope roared louder. Humanity had never survived by staying small, by hiding, or by surrendering. They survived by daring. Pilots learned to navigate asteroid belts like dancers weaving through chaos. Engineers performed miracles in zero gravity, welding and repairing with hands that shook from exhaustion yet refused to quit. Scientists improvised solutions on the spot, discovering new ways to shield engines, conserve energy, and make ships faster and stronger. Every challenge became an opportunity, every crisis a chance to prove that humans were more than their fragile appearance suggested. Then on the edge of known space, the shadows came. The Xylaris fleet appeared suddenly, a wall of massive, elegant ships that blotted out stars. Their hulls shimmered with strange energy, and their weapons glowed with deadly promise. The aliens had come not to negotiate, not to greet, but to confirm what they already believed. Humans were weak. They would fall before the might of a superior species. Commander Ilara's eyes narrowed as she studied the alien formation. Fear tried to creep in, but she pushed it aside. "We've trained for this," she whispered. "We've prepared for this, and we will not fail." The first shots were fired. Alien plasma beams tore through the darkness, slicing past ships with terrifying precision. The human fleet responded, smaller and slower, but filled with courage. Pilots twisted and turned through impossible angles, using ingenuity and teamwork to dodge attacks. Every maneuver was a gamble, every decision a test of skill and instinct. Explosions lit the void with sudden brilliance. Smoke and fire spilled into space, painting a grim scene of chaos. Yet humanity did not falter. Smaller, more agile ships darted through gaps between alien vessels, striking at weak points and retreating before the enemy could respond. Humans adapted quickly, using every lesson from years of war games, simulations, and earthbound battles, Ilara's. Voice rang through the fleet's communication channels. Remember who we are. We are fragile, yes, but fragile does not mean powerless. We are the species that survives storms, that climbs mountains, that rebuilds after earthquakes and floods. Every one of us carries the spirit of Earth. Fight. With that spirit. And fight they did. Ships that the aliens had thought would crumble under the first assault dodged, counterattacked, and survived. Crew members made impossible repairs mid-battle. Soldiers on smaller crafts worked together with pilots, guiding ships through enemy fire. It was not strength alone that won them battles. It was ingenuity, determination, and an unshakable will to survive. The Xylaris commanders watched in disbelief. "They are supposed to break," said one, its voice echoing in the alien council chamber. "Every calculation predicted their surrender, yet they persist. They adapt. They fight. They are unreasonably persistent. Humans had no time to notice the alien confusion. The battle pressed on, every second a test of endurance and courage. Yet even as explosions rocked their ships and alarms blared across the fleet, the human crews found moments of humanity. Laughter bubbled up in tense corners as pilots shared daring stories mid-combat. Engineers sang softly while repairing critical systems. Even in the darkest moments, humans found ways to lift each other's spirits, to remind one another that courage was contagious. On one small reconnaissance ship, Lieutenant Rena spoke into her recorder. "I don't know if we survive this," she said, voice trembling. "But I know this. We are alive. And being alive is worth everything." Every human voice carried the same message. The human fleet moved through the endless void, battered but unbroken. Stars stretched like endless watchful eyes, cold and distant. Yet the humans felt no fear that could stop them. Each ship carried not just metal and fuel, but the heartbeat of a species that refused to be counted out. They were fragile, yes, according to the galaxy, but the Xylaris had underestimated one thing: the fire that burned in human hearts. Commander Ilara stood on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes scanning the distant horizon for enemy movement. She could feel it. The tension in the fleet, the weight of every life on board, and the quiet hum of hope that refused to die. Humans were small in comparison to the alien warships, but they moved like living currents, unpredictable, persistent, and determined. Pilots called out coordinates, dodging plasma beams and weaving through debris fields. "Target on my left," one shouted. Another answered, "I've got your 6." Every maneuver was precise yet instinctive, a dance of courage and skill that even the aliens could not anticipate. Humanity's strength was not in overwhelming power. It was in adaptability, creativity, and the refusal to surrender. Below decks, engineers worked tirelessly, sometimes for hours without rest. Sparks flew as they patched hull breaches and rerouted power to critical systems. They joked with each other to keep spirits high, even as alarms screamed overhead. Every human hand mattered. Every choice mattered. Every heartbeat mattered. The fleet survived not because it was the strongest, but because every person on board refused to give up, refused to let fear win. The Xylaris watched from their command chambers, invisible to the humans. "They are supposed to falter," one whispered. "Every plan predicted it, and yet they adapt, they fight, they endure. How is this possible?" Humans did not wait for permission to be remarkable. They were remarkable simply because they tried, because they dared. A young fighter pilot named Kale executed a maneuver no simulation had predicted, dodging a wave of alien fire and striking a key energy conduit. The shot crippled a massive enemy vessel, sending it spinning into the darkness. Around him, his squadron erupted in cheers over the comms. It was a small victory, but in the vastness of space, even a small victory could light a fire. "Fragile?" Ilara muttered, watching the display screens. "No. Fragile is a word for those who give up. We do not give up." In the communication channels of the fleet, voices spoke across ships, lifting one another. "Keep going," one voice shouted. "We've got this," another replied. Even in moments of despair, humanity's spirit refused to die. The Zelaris may have measured strength in weapons and shields, but humans measured strength in hope, determination, and the courage to keep moving forward when all seemed lost. As the hours of battle stretched into days, a strange pattern began to emerge. The humans, though battered, were learning. Every alien attack taught them something new. Every loss, every close call, strengthened their resolve. The Xylaris may have had more firepower, but humans had endurance. Humans had heart. Humans had something no machine or alien strategy could replicate: the will to live, the desire to protect, and the courage to fight not just for themselves, but for everyone they left behind on Earth. Somewhere in the middle of the fleet, an older engineer, Maya, wiped sweat from her brow and looked at a young technician beside her. "Do you know what's amazing?" she asked softly. The young technician shook his head, exhausted but attentive. "Even when everything seems impossible," Maya said, "we keep going. That's what makes us human. That's why we survive." "The eye," aliens began to whisper among themselves, a ripple of unease spreading through their ranks. They had never faced a species that fought like humans, small, fragile, but endlessly adaptable and endlessly determined. "They are not afraid," said one. "They should be afraid. And yet, their courage burns brighter than their fear." Commander Alara felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her, but also the incredible pride of seeing her fleet endure. She moved from console to console, offering encouragement, guidance, and reassurance. "Every one of you is the reason. We are still here. Every human aboard these ships is part of something greater than themselves. We are alive, and being alive, that is power no alien can measure." A sudden surge of energy lit the void as the human fleet executed a coordinated strike, striking multiple alien vessels simultaneously. Shields faltered, engines failed, and confusion rippled across the Xylaris formation. Humans cheered, not because they had destroyed ships, but because they had shown that even the smallest human ship could challenge the mightiest alien vessel. In the quiet moments between attacks, humans shared stories, sang songs, and sent messages back to Earth. Children listened from their homes, eyes wide with wonder, imagining the courage of people far away in the stars. The humans in the fleet drew strength from these connections, knowing they carried the hopes and dreams of billions with them. Ilara looked at the stars beyond the battle, her heart swelling with both fear and hope. Humanity had been called fragile, laughed at, dismissed. But out here in the darkness of space, every human heart burned like a star. Every act of courage, every ingenious solution, every refusal to give up was a spark that would grow into a fire that no alien could extinguish. And deep in the galaxy, in the silent halls of the Xylaris, doubt began to grow. They had seen humans fight. They had seen humans endure. And now, for the first time, they feared a species they had once considered fragile. Humans were fragile, yes, but within that fragility was something terrifying, a fire in the heart that refused to die. A fire that would burn across the stars, a fire that would roar, and somewhere deep in the command bridge of the flagship, Commander Ilara whispered to herself, to the void, to the universe itself, "We are alive, and alive. We fight, alive. We roar." The aftermath of battle left the human fleet drifting among the stars, a mix of triumph and grief hanging in the air. Ships floated damaged, some barely holding together, with smoke curling from cracked hulls and warning lights blinking relentlessly. The silence between explosions was heavy, filled with memories of friends lost, sacrifices made, and the fragile balance between life and death. Humanity had survived, yes, but the cost was painfully clear. Commander Ilara walked along the corridors of the flagship, her boots echoing on the metal floor. She passed medical bays filled with wounded, faces pale, but eyes burning with stubborn determination. Each soldier, each crew member, bore the weight of the fight in their bodies, broken limbs, bruised faces, and exhaustion that seemed to seep into their very souls. Yet even in the shadow of loss, no one gave up. Humanity did not yield to despair. They repaired, they adapted, they healed, and they prepared to fight again. In the observation deck, Ilara gazed out at the stars. The void seemed endless, indifferent to the struggle below. She thought of Earth, far behind them, shining like a fragile blue pearl. So much had been risked to leave its warmth, yet every life lost in the fleet mattered, and every loss was felt like a wound across the heart of humanity itself. She clenched her fists, a silent promise echoing in her mind. No sacrifice would be in vain. "Commander," said Lieutenant Rena, her voice soft but steady, "we've lost 20 ships in this last skirmish. Hundreds of people." Her words trailed off, the weight of grief choking her. Ilara placed a hand on Rena's shoulder. "I know," she said quietly, "and it hurts. Every loss hurts. But they did not die for nothing. They fought for every human who follows. Every one of us carries them forward. Their courage is part of our fleet, part of our spirit. We honor them by continuing to fight, by surviving, by refusing to break." Below decks, engineers and pilots worked tirelessly, some in tears, some silent, some laughing softly to keep hope alive. Even in the darkest moments, humans found ways to lift one another, to remind each other that courage was stronger than grief. A young technician named Taro, who had lost his brother in the battle, whispered a prayer over the control panels he repaired. "We will make it," he said. "We will survive. I promise." The Xylaris observed quietly, noting the resilience that humans displayed. They had predicted despair. They had expected surrender. And yet, humans carried on. Every loss seemed only to strengthen their resolve. Every grief seemed only to sharpen their focus. The aliens had called them fragile, weak, unworthy of the stars. But they had underestimated the core of humanity, the ability to rise again no matter how many times they fell. Ilara returned to the bridge, standing before the main observation window. She watched a young pilot practice maneuvers in the simulation bay, her small hands trembling but steady. "Fragile," Ilara muttered under her breath. "Fragile is a word for those who stop." We do not stop. Messages from Earth reached them, through deep space relays. Children sang songs of hope, families sent letters of encouragement, and scientists offered ideas for new technologies to improve fleet survival. Every message reminded the humans that they were not alone. Humanity was a network of hearts and minds, all connected across vast distances, all carrying a single truth. Survival was not a solitary act. It was a promise to one another. The losses weighed heavily, but humanity had a stubborn light in their hearts that refused to die. A fighter pilot named Kaol stood on the deck of his ship staring at the void. "We've lost friends," he said softly, "but we carry them with us. Every maneuver I make, every risk I take, I do it." The void stretched endlessly, silent yet alive with danger. The human fleet moved cautiously, still battered but unbroken. Each ship bore scars from past battles, reminders of friends lost and risks survived. Commander Ilara stood on the bridge of the flagship, eyes scanning the dark horizon. Every glimmer of starlight reminded her of the unknown, and every shadow whispered of the enemies that still awaited them. Humanity had survived so far not by brute force, but by ingenuity, courage, and determination. Yet even she knew that the road ahead was more uncertain than ever. Then came the first signs of something unexpected. Small, sleek alien vessels appeared, not as aggressors, but as guides. They moved carefully around the human fleet, signaling coordinates and pointing out hazards hidden in the asteroid belts and nebulae. At first, humans were wary. The Xylaris had always treated them with contempt, had always laughed at their fragile species. Why would any alien come to help now? Lieutenant Rena narrowed her eyes as she studied the vessels on her monitor. "Commander, I don't know who they are, but they're helping us avoid debris fields and enemy traps." Ilara studied the signals. "We don't trust easily," she said, her voice steady. "But right now, we cannot ignore help. Humanity survives by using every opportunity. We will take what we need, carefully." The alien guides, cautious yet deliberate, led the human fleet through a dangerous stretch of space where gravitational anomalies threatened to pull ships into deadly currents. Human engineers marveled at the precision of their movement, quickly adapting alien techniques to improve their own navigation systems. Slowly, cautiously, humans began to understand that not all aliens shared the arrogance of the Xylaris. Some had watched humanity fight, endure, and survive, and had been moved, even inspired, by the fire within human hearts. As days passed, communication improved. The new allies shared intelligence, hidden weak points in the Xylaris fleet, ancient technology long forgotten, and secret paths that allowed humans to avoid overwhelming attacks. Every piece of information was carefully tested, adapted, and used to strengthen the fleet. Ilara gathered her senior officers on the bridge. "These allies are helping us, but we must remain vigilant. Trust is earned, not given. Every action we take must protect our fleet and our people. Humanity may survive by courage, but we also survive by wisdom." Despite the caution, a bond began to form. Engineers shared knowledge, pilots exchanged tactics, and humans and aliens found ways to work together without words, understanding that the goal was survival, not domination. The unexpected alliances gave the fleet hope. For the first time, they began to see that not every species in the galaxy sought to destroy them. Some could be inspired by their courage, their resilience, their fire. In one small transport ship, Maya, the veteran engineer, spoke softly to a young alien technician, assisting her with repairs. "I don't know why you help us," she said. The alien tilted its glowing head and communicated in signals humans had slowly learned to interpret. It was simple. "You inspire us." Ilara observed these exchanges from the bridge, her heart swelling. Humanity had not only survived impossible odds, they had also shown that courage and perseverance could inspire even beings who seemed cold and distant. The galaxy, once laughing at their fragility, was beginning to notice something far more powerful: their heart. Yet not all was calm. The Xylaris fleet, observing these unexpected alliances, grew wary. Their arrogance cracked as confusion spread among their commanders. "They have allies we did not anticipate," whispered one. "And these humans, they continue to fight with spirit, courage, and determination beyond expectation." Ilara knew that the alliances, however fragile, were crucial. The Xylaris had underestimated humanity at every step. But now, humans had learned the value of trust and cooperation, turning potential danger into opportunity. Every alliance, every new friend strengthened the fleet and sharpened their strategy. In the midst of these preparations, a young pilot named Kael spoke into the comm system. "Commander, we've learned a lot from them. Their navigation techniques, their energy shields. If we combine these with our ingenuity, we could turn the tide in the next engagement." Ilara nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Exactly. Humanity survives not by raw power, but by combining courage with knowledge. We take what we need, adapt it, and fight smarter. Every challenge, every enemy, every hardship is an opportunity to grow stronger. And grow stronger they did. The fleet moved with new precision, avoiding traps and striking with efficiency. Ships that once seemed vulnerable now had defenses enhanced by knowledge shared by their allies. Pilots executed maneuvers that surprised even the Xylaris, exploiting weaknesses previously unseen. Humanity's ingenuity, combined with the guidance of those who respected their courage, transformed fragile ships into a fleet capable of challenging the galaxy's most formidable opponents. Alara watched the stars beyond, her eyes burning with determination. "They called us fragile," she whispered to herself. "They thought our hearts would break under pressure. But they do not understand humanity. We may be small, we may be imperfect, but our courage inspires. And when we fight together, with hope and fire, even the stars themselves cannot ignore us." Somewhere in the Xylaris command chambers, doubt and fear spread like wildfire. Humans had survived the impossible, adapted to every attack, and now they were learning from those who had once been distant observers. The aliens had mocked humanity as fragile, weak, and insignificant. Now they were beginning to see a force that could not be ignored, and for the humans, every day brought a new lesson, a new victory, a new spark of hope. Fragility was only what others called them. It was never what they felt in their hearts. They were learning, growing, and becoming more than anyone in the galaxy had imagined. Commander Alara, standing on the bridge, raised her hand in quiet determination. "The galaxy may doubt us. The Xylaris may fear us. But humanity will continue, will endure, and will inspire. Our fire cannot be extinguished. Our spirit will roar." The human fleet gathered near the outer rim of the Xylaris territory, battered but unbroken. Stars stretched endlessly around them, cold and distant, yet the humans felt a heat in their hearts, a fire that refused to fade. This was the moment they had trained for, the moment that would define humanity in the eyes of the galaxy. "Commander." Alara stood on the bridge of the flagship, her eyes fixed on the vast alien formation ahead. Every ship carried lives, dreams, hopes, and the memory of those who had fallen in the battles to reach this point. Humanity was fragile, the aliens had said. Fragile, yes, but fragile did not mean powerless. The countdown began, not for the humans alone, but for the galaxy to witness a species it had underestimated for too long. "Crew of the First Fleet," Ilara's voice rang across the ships, calm but filled with fierce determination. "We were called fragile. We were underestimated. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity cannot be dismissed. We fight not because we are perfect, but because we are alive. Alive!" We roar. The fleet surged forward. Engines roared, lights cut through the darkness of space, and every human aboard felt the weight and the pride of their species pressing on them. Smaller ships darted around colossal vessels, coordinating attacks with precision and instinct. Humans had learned to fight as one, to move like a living organism where every part mattered, every action connected. The Xylaris had prepared for this, thinking the humans would break under pressure, thinking that fear would slow their progress. But as the human fleet pressed forward, weaving between enemy fire, striking at weak points, the aliens realized they had underestimated something crucial. Humans did not fight only for survival. They fought for pride, for courage, and for the hope of proving their worth. Explosions lit the void like sudden suns, hulls shattered, and debris floated in the blackness. Yet for every human ship that fell, another rose to take its place, and the fleet pressed on, unstoppable in their determination. Pilots shouted over comms, guiding each other through impossible maneuvers. Engineers repaired engines mid-flight. Soldiers and civilians alike worked together seamlessly, united by a shared fire. Somewhere in the chaos, Lieutenant Rena led a squadron through the flank of a massive Xylaris battleship. "Hold steady!" she shouted, voice cutting through static. Her squad executed a daring maneuver, striking at the ship's core reactor. The explosion erupted into the void, a brilliant white blossom of energy. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if witnessing the courage of a small, fragile species that refused to bow. "Fragile?" Ilara muttered, watching the display screens as alien vessels faltered. "No. Fragile is for those who do not dare. We are alive. And being alive is our weapon." The unexpected allies they had gained guided some of the ships through secret routes, avoiding ambushes and revealing weak points in the alien formation. Knowledge and courage combined, humans adapted and struck where the Xylaris were vulnerable. Every attack, every maneuver was a message to the galaxy. Do not mistake fragility for weakness. The Xylaris command scrambled to respond. Their confidence had been shattered. "They are small, weak, fragile," one officer hissed. "And yet, their fleet strikes with precision, with bravery, with fire we did not expect. How can this be?" Ilara did not pause to answer. Her attention was on the fleet, on the hearts and hands. The Xylaris fleet reeled from the human assault. Their colossal warships had once seemed untouchable, invincible, but the humans had struck with courage, precision, and an ingenuity that no simulation had predicted. Fires burned across alien hulls, alarms blared relentlessly, and the once confident commanders now scrambled to regroup. Humanity had roared across the stars, and the sound of that roar was terrifyingly clear. On the flagship, Commander Ilara stood at the observation deck, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. The fleet moved with renewed confidence, smaller ships darting around the larger vessels, striking at weak points, dodging fire with instinctive brilliance. Humans had adapted to the chaos, learned from the battles, and now they were the masters of their own fate. Lieutenant Rena piloted her fighter through the remnants of a shattered alien squadron, her hands steady despite the fatigue and fear lingering beneath the surface. "We've come so far," she muttered into the comms, voice trembling with emotion. "And we're still standing. We're still alive." "Yes," Kale replied from another ship, voice full of determination. "And we're not just alive. We're fighting back, smarter and stronger than they ever imagined. They called us fragile, and look at us now." Ilara's voice echoed across the fleet. "Remember what we fight for. Every life, every friend, every human who dreams of reaching. The stars is part of this moment. We are humanity. We endure, we adapt, and we roar." The Xylaris tried to regroup, unleashing their most advanced weaponry, massive plasma beams designed to vaporize entire ships. But the humans had learned. Ships split into smaller formations, using the lessons of past battles to dodge, counter, and survive. Engineers patched critical systems mid-flight, pilots improvised new attack strategies, and soldiers coordinated strikes that tore apart enemy formations with elegance and daring. Somewhere in the void, a young engineer, Taro, looked at the chaos on his screen, heart pounding. "We're really doing this," he whispered. "We're standing against them. We're winning." His hands shook, but he continued rerouting power, adjusting shields, and saving lives. Every human on every ship played a role, proving that courage was not only in pilots or soldiers, it was in every heartbeat, every decision, every act of survival. The alien commanders, watching the humans, felt unease creeping through their ranks. "How is this possible?" one whispered, voice trembling. "Every calculation predicted their surrender, every model predicted their failure, and yet they fight with courage, with skill, with fire we cannot extinguish." Ilara saw the doubt in the enemy's movements and seized the opportunity. "Focus," she shouted. "Push forward, strike where they falter. Humanity will not be crushed." Humanity will be heard! The human fleet surged with renewed energy. They had suffered losses, yes, but those losses had forged resilience. Ships that were damaged now moved like living things, coordinated and intelligent, as if the fleet itself had become one organism, guided by the courage of billions. Kale's squadron struck a critical alien energy hub, causing massive chain reactions across the enemy fleet. Explosions lit the void, brilliant against the darkness, each one a testament to human ingenuity and bravery. "For Earth!" Kale shouted, voice echoing over the comms, as his ship narrowly escaped the blast. On the flagship, Ilara allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. Humans had come so far from a fragile species dismissed by the galaxy to a force capable of challenging its mightiest empires. Every sacrifice, every scar, every lesson learned had brought them to this moment. Humanity's roar was not just a battle cry, it was proof of endurance, hope, and the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to be underestimated. The Xylaris fleet began to falter, their formations breaking under the relentless human assault. They had underestimated the smallest species in the galaxy, assuming strength came only from size, speed, or weapons. They had forgotten that the true measure of power was heart, courage, and the refusal to surrender. Humans had survived the impossible, adapted to every challenge, and now they were turning the tide of war itself. Messages from Earth reached the fleet, carried through deep space relays. Families cheered, children sang songs of hope, scientists offered ideas for improving the fleet's efficiency, and people across the planet watched live broadcasts with pride swelling in their hearts. Humanity had proved itself, not to the Xylaris alone, but to the universe. They had roared, and that roar echoed across every corner of space. Ilara turned to her officers, her eyes burning with resolve. This is not just a victory. This is a message. Humanity survives, humanity endures, and humanity will not be forgotten. Every act of courage, every life we save, every lesson we learn, it all leads to this moment. We are alive, and our roar will be heard across the stars. The final assault began. Every ship, every pilot, every engineer worked in perfect coordination. Smaller vessels struck at weak points, while larger ones drew enemy fire, shielding those who were vulnerable. Explosions rippled through the Xylaris fleet as humans moved like shadows through the void, unpredictable, unstoppable, and alive. In the aftermath, as alien ships fled or surrendered, the human fleet held its ground. Fires still burned on some human vessels, but no heart had been broken beyond repair. Humanity had endured, adapted, and triumphed. Their roar, once quiet and uncertain, now echoed boldly across the galaxy. Commander Ilara stood on the bridge, looking at the stars, her chest swelling with pride and relief. "We are fragile, yes," she whispered to herself, voice strong despite exhaustion. "But within fragility is courage, within weakness is strength, and within every human heart lies a roar that no one can silence." The galaxy had watched, laughed, and doubted. Now, the galaxy listened. Humanity had arrived, not just to survive, but to leave a mark that would echo across the stars for generations. The void was quiet now. The Xylaris fleet had been shattered, scattered, or forced to retreat. The human fleet drifted among the stars, battered but unbowed, each ship carrying the weight of triumph and loss alike. Fires burned in some vessels, alarms still rang faintly, and the air buzzed with exhaustion, but also with an undeniable sense of pride. Humanity had survived the impossible. Humanity had endured. Humanity had roared. Commander Ilara stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking out at the vast, silent darkness of space. The stars stretched endlessly, indifferent yet beautiful, as if witnessing a story that could never be forgotten. She felt the hum of the fleet beneath her feet, the heartbeat of a species that had been called fragile, weak, insignificant, and had proven every word of doubt wrong. Below decks, medics tended to the wounded. Soldiers and engineers shared quiet, words of encouragement. Pilots cleaned their gear, and technicians repaired damaged systems. Humans worked tirelessly, not because they were commanded, but because the spirit that had carried them this far would not allow them to stop. Every act, every movement, every choice reinforced the truth that humanity's strength lay not in weapons or size, but in courage, determination, and heart. Lieutenant Rena moved through the corridors, her voice soft as she spoke to the young recruits. "We fought," she said, eyes misting, "and we endured. We lost friends, yes, but we also discovered something greater. Within us is a fire that cannot be destroyed. They called us fragile. And now we have roared." Kyle, standing beside a damaged shuttle, looked at the stars and whispered, "Fragile." They never understood what that really meant. We are fragile in body, yes, but strong in spirit. And that spirit, it will echo forever. Ilara walked to the communication hub and sent a message to Earth. She spoke not only to leaders and civilians, but to every human across the planet. "We have faced the impossible," she said, voice steady but full of emotion. "We were called fragile. We were underestimated. We were told we would fail. And yet, we endured. We adapted. We fought. And today, humanity's roar fills the stars." Across the galaxy, humans everywhere listened. Children stopped playing to hear the words. Families clasped hands with pride. Scientists and scholars paused to witness history. The message was simple, yet profound. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was alive, and alive meant capable of greatness beyond measure. The Xylaris had fled, their arrogance shattered. They had called humans fragile, expecting fear, expecting surrender, expecting insignificance. But what they found was courage, resilience, and a species that refused to bow. Every alien commander who had watched the battles unfold carried the same silent, undeniable realization. Humans were not fragile. They were unstoppable in their will to survive, adapt, and triumph. On the observation deck, Ilara allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She thought of Earth, far behind them, the home that had nurtured a fragile species into something capable of shaping the galaxy. She thought of the lost friends whose bravery had paved the way. She thought of the millions of lives who had believed in humanity's potential, even when others doubted. And she felt a deep, unshakable pride. Maya, the veteran engineer, approached Ilara quietly. "Commander," she said, voice soft, "we did it. Humanity. We really did it." Ilara smiled, a mixture of relief, pride, and determination shining through exhaustion. "Yes," she said, "we did it. And this is only the beginning. The galaxy has heard us, humanity has roared, and no one will ever forget that roar." Across the fleet, the crew celebrated in small, quiet ways. A child's voice, relayed from